Hey guys, welcome back to Motorcycle Maintenance Channel. On this episode, we're going to show you how to do a valve inspection on a 2017 CBR1000rr motorcycle. All right, there's the seat. Next, we're going to take these two bolts at the bottom of the gas tank cover. Typically these would be a 5mm Allen key, however I've replaced them with crankcase cover bolts just because these tend to get stripped out. But anyhow, there'll be two bolts here. Okay, next we'll just remove the IMU cover. Alright, now we'll move up to the front of the gas tank cover, where there'll be two 5mm Allen key bolts on either side of the gas tank. And then on the other side. Alright, and then just gently lift up on the whole gas tank cover. Alright, now we're going to take off our side fairings. And we're going to start with a 3mm Allen key. Take these bolts here off. One, two, Alright, now we'll switch to our 5mm Allen key. And we'll move over to the side. Alright, and then we'll get the 3mm Allen keys directly on the other side. Alright, so now we're going to take the little clips on the inside of the mid fairing here, and you at home will learn a little secret about my bike, and that's that a lot of these clips broke, so there's duct tape under here. So just remove the duct tape. Also, these are Chinese eBay fairings, not the stock fairings, so they don't kind of come together that well. And the duct tape kind of helps mask that. So there would be some clips here, but they broke and I never replaced them, so I just zip tied them. So I'm just going to cut the zip ties. No one needs to know about these little things, but you guys are going to be privy to this knowledge at home. The secrets of motorcycles. Just one of the little things, and I'm sure this isn't even a factory one. It's probably just a generic one. These little plastic things are notorious for breaking, especially if you're in the habit of undressing your bike often. There we go. So now those are all loose. Now there's a little machine screw, I guess, or wood screw almost type thing down here on either side that holds the fairings in place. So we'll take that out. A little short stubby screwdriver works best. There we go. Now on the other side, same location there. Two little pins down at the bottom. Again, zip ties in my case. Oh, nope, not here. All right, good. So, should just come off now. Plastic is breaking. Luckily, when we dress it back up, we have some new Chinese plastics to put on. Next, take out the 5mm Allen bolt up top. I'll get my little hooks to pull that out. There we go. Okay. And then there'll be one on the other side. All right. Now, this thing should just pop right off. There we go. All right, now we'll take the left side off next. Yeah, I guess the motion you want is up and back. And now that's off. You want to be careful with these not to scratch them. I'm not that careful because they're pretty scratched, and like I said, we're going to put some new ones on when we dress it back up again. It's going to look real nice. So next we're going to do the belly pan. The belly pan is two separate pieces, but we're going to take it off as one piece. I do this on this CBR1000 and the older versions as well. It's easier this way. You gotta trust me. So we're going to take this piece out, take this little 3mm Allen screw here. And on the kickstand, 5mm in the back, it's a pan screw. It's not a symmetrical piece, but similar on the other side, there will be two screws that hold it up there. 3mm up top. Okay, and 5mm over here. And then now it'll just drop down as soon as this gets loose. And this one's a pan screw. See, it's got a beveled edge there. Don't want to get those mixed up. Those are kind of specific to where they go. Boom, and it just falls down. And now the little belly pan is removed. So now we're going to disconnect the battery cables. We'll start with the negative cable. Just kind of tuck it back so it doesn't come back and touch it. We'll put this here so we don't lose it. And then we'll disconnect the positive cable. And yes, that is a CBR lithium battery. Great for weight savings. But my other battery just happened to run dead, so I figured I'd upgrade. And I'm just going to put this little rubber glove in between here and the positive cable, just so we know that it's not going to come back and touch it and cause some electrical gremlins. All right, next we'll disconnect these hoses up here, and that's just tugging on them. So that one like that. And this one here, you pinch the clamps and then pull back on the hose. Little fuel breather line. There we go. After the hoses are taken off, we're going to start removing the fuel tank. Which will be this screw here, and there's another one exactly on the other side. We'll also end up taking this screw out, but first we have to disconnect the fuel lines. We'll raise it up like this. And there is our fuel line. This has a nice little quick disconnect, unlike the 2006 CBR that we did. There you just pinch these green clip here. Like that, pull back on it, and then pull on the fuel hose. Will leak a little bit, but not all your gas won't come out. Shouldn't come out. And then we have to disconnect the fuel pump, which is this black 2P connector here. So I'll have to pinch this and pull down on the connector. Like so, and it just connects from this little white piece there. And it's got another connection here. I'm not exactly sure what this red connector is, but it goes on the other side. You might want to make sure you remember the black goes on the brake side and the brown or red goes on the clutch side. So black on the right, brown on the left. All right. Now the tank's pretty much disconnected. We just need to unbolt these two bolts here on either side with the 5mm Allen key. Same as the front bolts. Now, if your CBR is an SP version, this fuel tank will be titanium. And I have not had the privilege of working on an SP CBR, but I hear the fuel tank is really sharp. Like the edges are sharp. All right. We should be able to lift this up and out now. Now we're going to remove the dust cover from around the tank. And they're just on here with these little tabs like this that go all around the air box. Sorry, around the air box. And we'll just unhook them, peel it away. And here's our lovely ECU. Put the dust cover over here. And the lower dust cover. Just hooked to the same little tanks. We'll make a note to connect those back too. All right. Now we can more easily access things. Next, we'll disconnect the fuel rail and move it to the side. All right, after the gas tank is removed, we're going to remove the ECU and all of these electrical connectors. But first we'll start with this little harness that holds the ECU in place. Take that off. There's another screw over here. Next, we'll unplug our little electrical connectors here. There's one. Looks like you just push on the little blue thing. They all have their own little individual snaps. This one here, I guess we'll push on this, pull. All right. If all you want to do is get at the ECU, we do have an ECU video you can check out. Okay, we'll come back to it. Alright, I'll get a flathead screwdriver for those two. Those seem to be a little bit stubborn. There we go. Alright, we got the ECU. We'll put him to the side. Alright, now disconnect more electrical connectors. There we go. And now the fuel rail connectors. I think they are fuel rail connectors. All right. Look at that. Now that's out of the way. Next, we'll actually take off the actual fuel rail and pull him back. Looks like that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 8mm bolts. Go. All right. And just so we know where these bolts go and stuff, might want to put them back. And then these will come off with the air box. right. Next, we'll unscrew these little screws around the air box. Okay, take off the top part of the air box and we will put it to the side. Okay. Here you'll see that I have a BCM air filter, which is kind of upgraded. You might have a stock one, but the principle to take it off is the same. We're just going to remove these screws here. All right. Ooh, look at those dead bugs. And all of that. So we'll clean that before that goes back in again. All right, next we'll take off the remaining little Phillips bolts that go around here. You'll have to excuse the noises of the neighborhood kids and animals and stuff, as motorcycle maintenance shop is also in the neighborhood. Ooh, it's in my throttle body tube. That's not good. I'll get that later. But you'll notice that on the 2006 we did, when we snapped the throttle bodies would open up. On this bike, it's all controlled electronically. So when you do this, nothing actually happens unless the bike's turned on. Take that throttle body out. Take that throttle body tower out. Take this bug out. Glad that didn't go inside there. All right. And we'll take out this middle screw. Before this thing can come out any further, we're gonna have to remove the little ram air scoops that come in each side. And it's really just a matter of tugging on them and they just kind of come off. We'll tug on this one here, on this side. Drop it there. All right. Oh, and there's one other electrical connector down here, it appears. All right, A lot of electrical connectors to remember to hook up, because if you don't hook them up, you're going to have issues. Either a check engine light or the bike's just not going to come on. All right, so it's almost ready to take off. There's a little suction hose that goes right here, and you can just kind of pull it up and it'll come. It's not super clamped on real tight. And then push this to the side. Looks like that sensor. We could just leave it like this, but for your viewing pleasure, we're going to have to disconnect it. It's a Phillips screwdriver right there. Take that off. And we'll have to dig that out. So now the air box is off. We're going to take off this dust cover here. Just kind of pull it out of the way if we can. Looks like it's wrapped around the throttle bodies, which I'm not going to remove. So I'm going to cover this up here to keep it clean, and then we'll pull this back over. All right, so next we're going to pull this little hose off the top of the valve cover right here. This connects to the air box. We'll put it on the air box. Then we'll pull this guy off and back. Make sure that you blow all this stuff clean after you pull this back off of it. Then we'll disconnect the ignition coils. There'll be 4 of them. There we go. Oh. So if you have a stock CBR that still has the pair valve on it, this will actually be sitting, all this plumbing will be sitting here. And this will also connect to your air box. Mine has this tube blocked off and all this is taken off. This is all emission stuff. I mean, if you want to stay emissions compliant, this will stay on your motorcycle. Mine doesn't have it, so I took it off. And it has these block off plates instead. Keeps the engine looking really clean, and you know, it helps. If you ever put your bike on a dyno, they're going to have to take that off as well. So after all those connectors are disconnected, we'll disconnect the blue one here as well. Pull that off. And then we'll take out the ignition coils that sit on top of the spark plug. And you should just be able to pull up on them and they'll come off, I believe. So now we're going to pull the ignition coils off. The book says just pull them off, but I'm going to pull them off with a pair of pliers because they're on there pretty good. There's one ignition coil. I'm not a fan of getting these mixed up. I'm sure you can, but I'm going to put them back where they go. So this one goes on this side. So when I put them down on the floor, I'm going to put them in the order I took them off. I just want to make sure they go right back in the same spot they came from. I'm not sure if it really matters, but I'm not taking any chances. There we go. There, on there, good. When I put them back on, I'm going to use some dielectric grease. I'm a big fan of doing this maintenance myself because I don't really trust the shop to do it correctly. Not that they wouldn't, it's just it is a big hassle and a big job. Sometimes I feel like they just pull those out, pop in new plugs, and tell you they inspected the valves. Not saying they do that, but maybe. All right, so all that's taken up and out of the way. You're going to want to blow compressed air through in here and clean this off real well before you pull out the spark plugs, because it's real important that no dirt or debris or dust falls inside the combustion chamber. Before we do that though, we're going to have to remove the radiator on the other side. So that'll be the next step. We'll get our 10 millimeter socket and we'll start draining the radiator so that we can take it off. Typically you'll probably have a kickstand right here, so you might need an extension. I don't have the kickstand currently on my bike because I just took it to the track. And I will be racing later this month, and they do not allow us to have kickstands on the motorcycle when we race, which is kind of annoying. Alright, well, there's the drain bolt. No fluids coming out because I did not unscrew the radiator cap on the other side. There we go. Once you unscrew your radiator cap, the fluid comes right out. And it's blue. And it was just a track day, which is why there's still radiator fluid in there. We're going to put water in it when we fill it back up for the race. Alright, now I'm sure there's still plenty of fluid in there, but we're going to have to undo the hoses and it'll continue to come out, but not so much of it will come out. So that's drained. Next, we're going to take this clamp off, and these are not reusable clamps. So Honda, if you're watching this as a customer of your motorcycles, I would prefer if you guys went back to using reusable clamps again, because this is a pain in the butt. I don't know if you guys did this for weight savings or what, but I don't like it. We have G plus hoses coming on the way, and we're going to add those as well. Yes, I know it's not name brand Samco, but I just can't justify spending $250 on a water hose. Alright, so that's done. Next, we're going to unplug our fan. Connect it with this 2P connector here. There we go. Here's one. Now we'll go to the other side, and there's some hoses we'll have to undo over there. There's our other radiator fan connector. That other fan came off. pretty easy. There you go. That one comes off. I know some guys at the track will run without radiator fans to save weight, and because it's a track only bike, they don't have to have fans because they're not sitting in traffic. Mine's not a track only bike, and honestly, even if it was, I still don't think I would run it without any fans, because I'm not that good to where a few ounces of weight is going to hurt me, or however much these fans weigh. Take this one off too. Sure you don't ruin your hoses. Just not a big fan of these clamps at all. Little radiator fluid bath. Whew. Okay. And that's my safety wire. Yours probably won't be safety wired, but they make us safety wire the cap at the track. All right. Now to the other side to unbolt the actual physical bolts that hold it on. Also 8. So there's really, besides those 3 hoses, there's really only 2 bolts that hold the radiator on. On the other side, it's just kind of hanging with a little grommet and a thing. So there's that one. And then over here, there's one as well. Down at the bottom. And there's not a whole lot of clearance there, but we can get to it. Might want to use an extension. I can get to it pretty good though. Just go like this. And you can kind of see it working its way backwards there. And there we go. Just so that we know that this post goes there, I'm going to stick it back in its spot just a little bit. We don't lose our bolt. And the same with the upper one. See, this pipe is leaking a lot. I'm going to move this guy over here underneath this pipe. Catch some water there. And this guy, we'll just put him back where we got it from so we don't lose it. We know that that goes there. The other one goes at the bottom. All right, so now we're just going to move it a little bit towards brake, I think. Oh, we'll just push down and then move it over to the side. All right, so I guess that's not the only thing. There's a little clip here that we forgot about that needs to come out. That's holding it all together right here. And if yours isn't an ABS version, you're not going to have these ABS lines here. But this has ABS on it. So I'm just going to get something to poke that out with. My little 90-degree picks. See if that'll help us out there. There we go. Be very careful with your radiator. Oh shit. All right. And it's out. There it is, guys, the radiator. I don't think you'll have this little plastic thing on it, on the side of it up here, if you don't have an ABS version. But maybe. Either way, it's not real hard to pull out. Just push in right there. I'm gonna snap it back in just so I know where I got it from. There we go. And we're going to want to run distilled water through it before we put it back in, just while we have it out, because it's easier to flush it this way. It's all over my feet. That's perfect. All right, so we'll put this to the side. Our radiator is off. Now we need to remove the actual valve cover, which is only 4 bolts. It's this one, this one, this one, and this one. They're 10mm bolts. And kind of, when you're removing them, kind of gauge the force. They're only on there with 10 Newton meters. So, and they will snap because they're going into the engine block. So when you take them off, kind of feel the force. And typically, I'm going to put them all back on with the torque wrench, all except for this one, because you can't really get to that with a torque wrench unless you have some sort of special torque wrench. But these other 3 we can get to with torque wrenches, I'm pretty sure. This one there, I mean, we can get to it with a torque wrench and we use like a universal swivel. But as soon as you put one of those universal swivels on there, the torque kind of gets skewed. I'm going to disconnect this wire here that goes to the... I mean, this probably doesn't have to be disconnected, but I am because it's in my way. That goes to the steering dampener. It's maroon. So for this one, we're going to have to use this to get to it. Remember, 10 Newton meters, it's not that much. You can see though why the shop will charge you anywhere from $500 to $800 to do this job, because it is a big job. But by doing it yourself, you save. I mean, when you take the parts into consideration, there's about $200 worth of parts. You're saving yourself close to $1,000. You snap one of these bolts in there, you're not going to be happy. There's one. And try to keep, again, it's not terribly important because they're all the same size, I believe, but I personally like to put all the bolts that go into the engine block in the same place you got them from. So what I mean by that is, like, this one's here in the middle. I want to put him back in the middle, just because the threads are already used to this. That might be a little overkill or anal or whatever, but that's the way I'm doing it. And that's the way I recommend you do it. All right, now to take the valve cover off. And I'm hoping we don't have to take the CMP sensor off. I think we should just be able to lift up, and it should come off without having to take that sensor off.
Is that screw from earlier?
What?
That noise, is that screw from earlier that we couldn't find?
Oh no, we got that already.
Oh, you got it?
Alright, so we just lift the valve cover. And this is why we had to take the radiator off, because the valve cover wasn't going to come out through the top. And putting this back in is also going to be extremely tricky. And yeah, it looks like the CMP sensor did not have to be taken out, which is great. Okay. There's just not a whole lot of clearance here. So just like we're gonna fight to take it out, we're gonna have to fight to put it back in. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've done this 3 times, but on the 2006 CBR1000, so this is gonna be my first time doing it on the 2017 model. Push, baby, push. There's just not a whole lot of clearance there. Even less clearance. It was hard before, it's still hard. Alright. There you go. There's just a lot of plumbing and stuff. But there it is, guys. There's your camshafts. And there's your valve cover. Got your clutch cover here. And man, getting this thing back in is like a Rubik's Cube. It's going to be just as difficult as pulling it out. We'll take off the seal here. I think some people reuse this. I don't. Take it off. You'll notice these little lobes here. This is where you'll put your Honda bond, because if you don't, you'll have a leaky valve cover and oil will come out of your valve cover. You'll have to put it here, and we'll do that when we reinstall. And it's just a pain. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's gonna make me cry. All right, so it's off. So now that the valve cover is off, we're going to open this little window up here. To get to the camshaft. Well, I thought I'd be able to reach the camshaft chamber through here. This will allow more light in there to see. Take this off. Open that up. We're going to have to get to the camshaft positioning thing here to tighten the camshaft. You can't really see it because it's behind the chassis. I thought we'd be able to see it through this window. It's not the case, but it's in here, right there. So we're gonna have to take that nut out right there. We'll take that bolt out and then access it with a special tool. Now I have the special tool for an 07, 06 CBR. Okay, I'm going to disconnect this hose right now. It goes to the reservoir, and I'm just going to do it to give us more clearance when we put in the valve cover, and so I can get to the cam chain tensioner bolt. So pull it this way and just leave it hanging out over here. Alright. So you got our 8mm wrench. Oh! I'm bleeding. Alright, I'll just unscrew it right there. And then when you put this back on, you'll need a new sealing washer. Right there. You'll need to replace that sealing washer. Okay, this is what the tool looks like. Well, not exactly. Like I said, this one goes to an 06, 07. It should work, I hope. This little tool cost $100. So, which is why I opted, if it didn't work, to use an aftermarket camshaft tensioner. So we'll check it out. Stick it in that hole. Yeah, it looks like it's going to work, which means we have to use our original tensioner. Now, it does, of course, the original tool is not going to have this crazy rubber band set up, but the tool actually broke, and it's worked before for other jobs of this nature, for my other 3 inspections. So I just kept using it because I didn't want to buy another $100 little bitty screwdriver. But it works. So now that we know that works, now we can use this to tighten the cam chain to when we move our crankshaft. So we got it. I'm not going to tighten it just yet because it's not in the position that we need it. So next we're going to undo this so that we can move the crankshaft into the proper position in order to check the valves. So we're going to do that next. Now we're going to take this cover off. It's a 10mm Allen key. Alright, it's got a little O-ring there. Put it back on. Alright, now we can get to this nut here so that we can turn the crankshaft. And we'll have to turn it to the proper position in order to actually check our valve clearance, which is what we're here to do. So let me get the proper tool there. 14mm socket. And we need to put it in the proper position. We're going to have to position, we got this off, we're going to have to position this. There's supposedly marks here, but I'm not seeing them. But we have to position this little eye line here, so it's kind of up and down right here, I'm guessing. But really, what really needs to happen, more importantly than that, is there's marks on the camshaft gears up here that have to be flush right here on the inside, and they say N and X. So the N has to be here flush on the gear, on this outside gear, and on the inside gear, I guess the front gear needs to have N flush here, and the back gear has to have X flush here. Now what I mean by that, you think I can show this? So when you look at it here, oops, see how it says X needs to be right there. That line needs to be flush towards the exhaust, and N needs to be flush towards the gas tank, or where the gas tank would have been. So we're going to rotate it to where these marks are flush on either side. And what I mean, we're going to rotate this nut, and it can only be rotated in the clockwise direction. If you rotate that nut counterclockwise, you're going to mess up the whole engine, and I can't help you fix it. I don't know too many people who can. So clockwise. Turning the the camshaft around to position it in the top dead center position. We're going to pull out our spark plugs at this time. I like to do it after the valve cover is off, because there's debris and stuff on top of the valve cover, and it's just easier this way, because there's, you know, all this stuff isn't in the way. So take it off. The book says to change the spark plugs every 32,000 miles, but to do a valve inspection and examine them, I can't pull it out now because the extension's too long, and to examine them every 16,000 miles. And my thing is, if I'm going to do all this work and get to the spark plugs like this, I'm just going to change them. There's no examining about it. Like, if you want to reuse your spark plugs and then go ahead and change them at the next valve inspection, you can do that if you think that they look okay. But I mean, they don't cost that much money. So I'm just going to change them right now. Let's examine it. And it looks all right, you know. I could probably reuse this for another 16,000 miles. But I'm here, right? And I'm just going to put new ones in. It cost me $50 for 4 spark plugs. I'm just going to go ahead and put new ones in. Okay. That one looks okay too, I think. I'm not an expert at examining spark plugs, but it looks all right to me. But like I said, if I'm going to take them out, I'm going to put new ones in. And I would recommend you do the same, unless you know better than me, which you might. Then, you know, use your judgment on it. Book says inspect at 16, replace at 32. But I'm not going to reuse them. Should be dry. All right. I don't like that there's a little fluid in there. All right, the good doctor has removed the spark plugs. Now, back to twisting the crankshaft.